Hello and welcome to the Intertidal Zone, a podcast where we compare and contrast sequential episodes of Spongebob Squarepants and the X-Files. This week we're doing the pilot episodes, X-Files of course being called Pilot, SpongeBob being split up into three parts being called Help Wanted, Reef Blowers, and Tea Time at the Treehouse. I am your co-anchor Michael.
And I am your co-anchor Jackson, and with us today is our special guest.
Hello, I'm Dylan, and I'm happy to be here.
Alright, so let's get this ball rolling and actually talk about Season 1, Episode 1 of The X-Files. But I want to talk about it in terms of the characters. So, there's the two main characters, really, and that's Dana Scully and Fox Mulder. Now, I've got a little quiz for both of you.
Alright.
Alright, so I'm gonna say four names. You have to tell me which one wasn't used to describe Fox Mulder.
Which one wasn't used to describe Mulder?
Yeah, which one was not used to describe Fox Mulder? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Spooky Mulder, FBI's Most Unwanted, Steven Spielberg, Agent Kook.
Agent Kook.
Alright, well, I specifically remember Steven Spielberg and FBI's Most Unwanted as names he gave himself.
Yeah. What was the first one, Jackson?
Spooky Mulder, and then Agent Kook.
I think it was only the last one was not used.
I'm going to trust Michael as well, because I don't remember out of the other two.
That's true. All I wrote down on the paper was like agent, and I had to think of a word, so I went with Kook.
Nice.
I mean, you could imagine one of the other FBI agents calling him that, though.
Well, alright. So do you think that there are good representations of him as a character?
Besides the last one, I think
Besides
they
Agent
are.
Kook, you think he's a Steven Spielberg?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think he's a kook. You know, he's clearly right about all of this stuff. A kook is someone who's crazy and obsessed. This man's...
Well, he is both crazy and obsessed.
Well, he's not crazy. He's right about all of it, right?
Doesn't mean he's not crazy.
No, he has an idea of what it is, right? So the basic premise is there's a mystery out in Oregon. A girl dies, a murder, and the only sort of identifying mark is the 2 bites, like moles on her back. So all we can tell from that is that Mulder knows of previous cases in Sturgis, South Dakota, Shamrock, Texas, and now Raymond, Oregon, where the same exact marks have existed. And we find out during the end.
I just wanted to say that I found it very funny in the opening scene when they saw the girl and the detective who kind of had a feeling of what was going on. He knew all about it. He turned her around, saw the moles, and he just pieced out of there. And the other guy's like, you gonna examine this body? He just walks off, doesn't say anything. And then it has this video has been based on real documented FBI events or something like that. It's like, yeah, okay.
Well, alright, so that was something that got me, right? Because the whole setup for the plot is that one of the fathers of these abductees was the father of the child that was murdering all the other ones, and the other one was the father of just a girl who's just very afraid that she's gonna die next, right? But the significance of them is that one is the detective, the county sheriff detective, and the other one is the autopsy guy. I don't know the name of that career.
Mortician.
So together they've been working together to hide the evidence that the son has been murdering people. And I don't understand the mortician's reason for doing this.
I don't understand anybody's motivation behind that.
Well, I understand the detective, right?
He's the sheriff, not the detective.
He was called the detective at least once.
Yeah, well, I got a very sheriffy vibe off of him.
They said county sheriff detective. It was really weird.
It can only be one or the other.
I guess it's a small place in Oregon where, he has to wear multiple hats.
When aliens are around, anything can happen. Ooh.
So, yeah, I just don't get the mortician's motivation. I understand the detective's motivation. He doesn't want his son to go to prison.
He could try to actually keep his son under control with, straps or literally anything. Also, it was revealed that this boy was going out in the middle of the night multiple times, where the caretaker's just not paying attention to his feet, or...
Apparently not.
This dirt here is natural.
They touched on that, because apparently not. His feet were dirty as hell, and, it took a fucking medical examiner to come up and wait a minute, there's dirt on these feet. We've cracked the case. Come on now.
What were they doing the rest of the time? Well, time to wash everything but the feet. Not gonna look at the feet.
To be fair, the nurse that was looking after him didn't exactly seem like the most intelligent vegetable in the produce aisle.
That was the most tasteless joke I think I ever heard.
I'm thinking maybe once, a week she has to shower these vegetables or whatever. And she sees dirt on his feet and goes, "Oh, that must be foot dust." That makes sense. It's foot dust.
What's this? Leaves? Nah, that's normal.
Alright, now I want to talk about one more thing before we leave X-Files. That is the sort of enemy, right? The aliens, the light. The light is sort of how it's described throughout the episode. We see everything about the aliens through the young Miles, Billy Miles, right? One of the abductees.
Can I say one thing about the aliens, though? Is that I really got the sense that they're space snakes, right?
Oh my God.
How? How did you get the sense that they were space snakes?
Well, if you look at when Molnar shows when the pictures
the moles?
of the moles, it looks like they're indented, right? Looks like these are indented. So I got the sense that these are fangs sinking into them, right?
They were probably tools.
But they're all perfectly separated.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking they probably come from a culture where instead of 4 prongs on a fork, they just have 2. So I'm thinking the testing was how do we eat these scrumptious humans, right? And I guess on their planet, they just sort of poke the fork into whatever they want to eat, and it just sort of cooks itself in some way, and they just don't understand why it doesn't work for humans. And that's why they're doing all these tests.
I also want to say, at the end of the episode, where the one girl gets abducted, no one seems to care.
Well, she came back.
I don't think she did.
Because at the end, they had to explain away the reason why they just let Billy and the other girl go, and that's because the alien said the test just didn't work, so they just wanted to wipe all the evidence. They lost their marks, and then they lost their memories, and then they were set free. Also, one thing against what you were saying, Jackson, that I completely disagree with, is when you said the light, the alien, then you said the enemy. And I'm pretty sure that they're very clear during the show that the enemy is not the aliens, but rather the government itself, the corruption inside that's trying to hide the aliens. That's the true enemy.
I think they're both enemies, though, and they never resolve what they're going to do about these aliens just abducting people.
Well, no, that is a little odd, right? You would think that in a show about the supernatural, you think the supernatural would be the enemy. But very much so in the episode, you're absolutely right. It was small government.
Not the large government, the small government.
But also the FBI themselves were the ones trying to shut down Mulder, also hiding the evidence that Scully gave them.
It seems clear that they know what the truth is, but for some reason they don't want to admit it.
I actually want to jump to Dana Sully real quick. We see a lot of the episode through her eyes, right? The camera really follows sort of from her perspective. Mainly because Mulder is not exactly the most relatable of characters, right? That's sort of what makes him interesting.
He's what they call the attraction to the show, right? So every story of a show mostly will have the straight man and the attraction. You see this in stuff like Star Trek Next Generation, where the normal cast is the captain, Riker, Dory LaForge, and Data and Worf are the attractions because they're not well adjusted, and they're the ones who will have the most character development.
And then you have the just complete garbage, like Wesley.
Wesley has some interesting input.
If he was a Pokemon, he would be Garbodor. If he was a Digimon, he'd be Muck.
That's not a Digimon. What?
And therein you find the joke. Well done, Michael.
That's not a joke. That's just whatever.
Welcome to the Pokemon Star Trek comparison cast. Jackson and Michael.
So now, I actually saw the weirdest connection between SpongeBob and X-Files. Maybe you didn't notice it.
Probably not.
It's something I like to call Japanese camera angles.
Okay. Alright.
In both series, episode 1, we see Dana Scully, and at some point she thinks that she's been abducted. She's about to go have a shower, she's checking her back and feels 2 bumps. Right? Oh no. But the Japanese camera angle is that she's very much just in her underwear. Goes over to Mulder, has him check it out.
And they focus very specifically on certain parts of her?
Exactly. And in SpongeBob, I don't know if you noticed this, but the very first episode, I'm talking first 10 minutes of like episode animation. We see SpongeBob in his underwear, followed up by him taking off the underwear and screaming, "I'm naked."
That was in the first 2 minutes, not first 10 minutes. Jeez.
No, I said first 10 seconds.
Okay, I thought you said minutes. Go on.
Did any of you see any other sort of similarities between the two?
They were pretty different. I guess just the fact that there were alien substances in X-Files, and I'm pretty sure that all inhabitants of Bikini Bottom besides Sandy are aliens.
Okay, so have you ever heard the theory behind SpongeBob? So they're in Bikini Bottom, and the U.S. tested nuclear devices on the Bikini Atoll. So they say all these creatures are affected by nuclear radiation.
So, there's one more connection before we jump off, and it's in sort of the character portrayal. Now, I'm going to name a SpongeBob Squarepants character, and I'm going to ask you to tell me the equivalent X-Files character. Can you do that?
We'll try.
Squidward tentacles.
The head of the FBI, like the head boss.
I guess somewhat. I was going more for the county sheriff detective Miles, but you know.
But he's way too involved to be Squidward.
I mean, Squidward is a core part of at least 2 episodes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about SpongeBob now. Now, the first episode, like I said, was split into 3 parts: Help Wanted, Reef Blowers, and Tea Time at the Tree House.
I think it's Treedome.
Is it? No, you're right. It's definitely Treedome. So, let's talk about the first part, Help Wanted. It's very introductory. SpongeBob tries to get the job at the Krusty Krab, and Mr. Krab says, you can only have this job if you find this super special spatula.
Hydrodynamic
Spatula
with port and starboard attachments and a turbo drive.
Yes.
Now, do you want to go a little bit into what the different parts of that spatula actually do?
Okay, so this is spatula, which is a very large plot point in the first episode, is never seen again.
Well, I think you can sort of assume, if you were to imagine the lore of SpongeBob SquarePants as a line, I'm pretty sure that after the events of Help Wanted, at some point either Squidward or Mr. Krabs sort of takes the spatula from SpongeBob, because he gets a little bit overzealous towards the end with that.
That's true. Okay, yes. So this is a spatula with a red antenna on the top for whatever reason.
That's hydrodynamic, you see.
Adding more resistance to it. Alright.
Oh, well, it's Wi-Fi enabled?
Very progressive for the time, by the way. This is in the early 90s. We know Wi-Fi wasn't... Or was it late 90s? I think it was late 90s.
And we all know that SpongeBob SquarePants was a very forward-thinking show. I mean, spatula technology still hasn't, attained the...
Well, yes, retractable side spatulas. Apparently a propeller as well.
Yep, and turbo drive, which is perfect for slapping people.
I've got another quiz if you guys are interested.
Alright.
So I took special note of the things that Mr. Krabs said. So he speaks in very sailor talk. I am going to read back a couple phrases that he said, and I'm going to throw in a fake one. And please try and identify the fake one. Batten down the hatches, Mr. Squidward. We're taking on water, Mr. Squidward. Arsh, he blows, Mr. Squidward. I want my mommy, Mr. Squidward. Man overboard, Mr. Squidward. Climb, Mr. Squidward. Counting up the booty, Mr. Squidward.
This is all in the same scene. How is this a difficult quiz?
Nope, it's not all in the same scene.
Except for the last one.
Which one wasn't real?
I forgot what it was.
That was as hard, doesn't remember. Nice. The Archie blows Mr. Squidward.
Yes, that is the fake one. Well done. I gotta say, I want my mommy, Mr. Squidward, is probably one of the best sentences ever recorded for television ever.
Okay, so yeah, that is Help Wanted. And Reef Blowers is a classic of animation, a silent episode of a normally talkative
Well, there
series.
is one word, but it's only typed up.
And, I wasn't really impressed by Reef Blowers.
I liked it. I thought it was cute. It was just short enough. It had the generic SpongeBob feel to it of Squidward getting screwed over by SpongeBob's antics, but in the end it was, his own fault because he was the one who dirtied up SpongeBob's lawn and SpongeBob inadvertently returned the favor 100-fold. So I think it really had that SpongeBob flavor.
I think you're absolutely right. It was probably the most karmic episode of SpongeBob I've ever seen. So, but there was one thing about the episode that I really like. Because you got to think of these episodes as really establishing sort of the legacy that is SpongeBob. And one thing that this episode does really well is shows how far they're willing to push the creative side, right? How far can they push the insanity of what the show is? And that takes the form of SpongeBob sucking up all of the water in the ocean with his reef blower. Which, in a weird way, kind of tied into Tea at the Treedome, because there's this brief moment where, like, Squidward is gasping for air, and Tea at the Treedome
Squidward,
is,
you say?
like, gasping for air. Do you have something to say about Squidward?
He wasn't in the episode.
He was in the reef blower episode, and he was gasping for air.
Oh, right. Sorry.
And then Tea at the Treedome, we have Patrick and SpongeBob, with such great lines as air, I like it dry. I think that's really fucked up.
I think Tea Time at the Treedome was by far the best episode in the lot.
It was hilarious.
Yes. I think it is a classic SpongeBob episode, and it is a treasure for us all.
In which SpongeBob takes on Patrick's advice and gets totally screwed over by it.
Classic SpongeBob and classic Patrick.
And then Patrick, instead of helping him out, just joins him in being screwed over. That's definitely how it goes with SpongeBob and Patrick when they hang out together.
Well, I think he was trying to be a good wingman, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the advice, when in doubt, pinky out, isn't exactly helpful, but an attempt was made.
Oh, definitely.
And I just want to point out that they're going to drink Texas tea and eat cookies, which is a one-way road to diabetes.
Poor SpongeBob.
Have you ever had Texas tea, Jackson?
No, I have not had Texas tea.
Have you ever had sweet tea?
Yes, I have had sweet tea.
It's like sweet tea with 2 more cups of sugar in it.
But what about that, but instead of fresh water, you use salt water? Because that's how SpongeBob and Patrick drank it.
Oh, no.
Think about that.
I really don't. I also find it interesting that she had cold brew packets.
Well, yeah, it was an advertisement for Lipton iced tea. Everybody knows this.
I gotta buy some myself now.
I can see it in my mind's eye. There's Kermit the Frog, and he's just drinking, sipping on that Lipton iced tea.
Oh no, not this. Not this meme.
I noticed something sort of strange between the 3 episodes, and it's about SpongeBob himself. And he's written with sort of weird self-confidence.
Weird? I mean, he's always confident in himself. How is this weird?
See, that's the thing. He comes off as a very self-confident person, but we see in 2 of the 3 episodes, like, just this overwhelming self-doubt, or sort of self-rebuke. In Help Wanted, he was ready to get that job. He's walking down to the Krusty Krab, arms in, swaying at his side. And he says, I'm going to march right up to that manager, and and he stops. He can't go through with it until Patrick sort of talks him into it. And we see that again.
His words were, "What would you like on your order?" or something like that.
What were your first words? May I take your order?
Whose first words are, "Can I take your order?" Mine. who made a spatula out of toothpicks and woodworking?
Who's a big yellow cube with holes? So, yeah, again in Tea in the Treedome, we see SpongeBob sort of really being supported by Patrick as a character. We also hear SpongeBob say, I am a quitter. But
Because he was dedicated to not taking in any water while in the air dome. And he had to eventually take in water or else he would have died. And so in his mind, that made him a quitter.
Yeah, but how many times did we have him run to the door and try and, break out? I'm just saying.
I think that's a reasonable response to the situation at hand.
I loved all the gags in which he sort of flopped around like a fish, even though he's a sponge. Like, as soon as he got in there and he realized it was air, he was flailing on the ground like a fish that just been caught. And then when he goes to the water fountain, he's sort of like flopping around in there until the bird beats his ass out of there.
Alright, so let's talk. Alright, favorite part of X-Files, Jackson?
My favorite part of the X-Files?
Yes.
I'm gonna say, and this is daring, but I'm gonna say the basketball joke was pretty great.
Oh, no.
I think my favorite part of X-Files were when Scully finally realized that he was right and that they were actually aliens, and then they started going in the forest and, being like, oh shit, what's this light? I thought that was pretty hypey.
Pretty hypey? Okay, I think my favorite part was probably the vegetable aisle joke which,
Oh.
while it was awful, I think really brought out her character and explained the entire mindset.
Yeah, that was a good piece.
All right, favorite part out of all three SpongeBob episodes, favorite part of the entire set of three.
Dylan, you want to start us off?
Oh yeah, I've got it clear in my mind's eye. It was the best joke in the entire time. Was SpongeBob was doing the "I'm literally dying of suffocation" voice, which was a fantastic voice. And Sandy goes up to him and is like, "Would you like anything to drink?" "Water would be nice." And then she's like, "All right, I'm gonna get a vase for this flower." And he's like, "Take your time." And that was like the funniest fucking moment. Like, he's just trying so much to play it cool.
I think favorite part was similar to that. It was when he was using the same voice, and she's like, "You're the first sea critter to visit me. Fancy that?" And he's like, "I can't imagine why."
Yeah, that's pretty great.
My favorite part was easily the 7 repeated "I don't need it" before he screamed, "I need it!"
Okay, so we're all in agreement that tea time at the treehouse was the best SpongeBob part of the best SpongeBob partition, I should say.
Oh, by far.
Okay, so how should we approach comparing the two? Because SpongeBob was 3 parts, and X-Files was only 1 part.
I think you got to look at it as a whole, right? In terms of, take it as like a character piece of SpongeBob, and then take it as a character piece of Scully and Mulder. You have to think which one you liked better.
I think I'm going to compare which ones I enjoyed more.
Okay, use different words to say the same thing. Got it?
No. You're talking about character development at a very which one developed the characters better, right?
Not necessarily, but I think that is a great way to sort of look at it whole scale.
Right. Well, I don't think enjoyment necessarily has to tie into that, though. So I think it's a different way of looking at it.
All right, fair enough. Have you made your decision?
Not yet. So why don't we take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. I honestly think that X-Files was a better episode overall.
Explanation?
I think that while Tea Time at the Treehouse was really good, I did not enjoy the first 2 parts of the episode, and I enjoyed basically every moment of X-Files, and so SpongeBob was only a third entertaining, and X-Files was wholesome entertainment.
See, I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. And I'm going to have to say that I felt a little frustrated at the first episode of X-Files. Mainly because a lot of the plot, they ran into obstacles that they couldn't avoid, right? That they had no option of avoiding. That really sort of destroyed all their progress. The body was stolen from the morgue. Their motel was lit on fire, right? And that just frustrated me because I wanted that development. I wanted them to come back to the U.S. government. I wanted them to go bang, 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 bang. Here, this is what we saw, this is what we saw. I wanted the validation of the actions of what happened in the episode, and it just wasn't there. The tiny little piece of metal on the desk, I felt like it was talking about how it was sort of an uphill battle, and it was going to continue to be an uphill battle for the future of the series.
Yeah, I think that's more interesting than it just being accepted by the FBI and just being like basically just another CSI, but it's aliens instead. So I think it makes it for a more interesting plot device.
Still, it does feel like a little bit of a cop-out how they had to sort of destroy it in ways that were just unavoidable, like, oh, it was stolen mysteriously, and oh, it was lit on fire mysteriously.
But they explained it that it was the sheriff, right?
I mean, sure, they explained it. I think it would have been better if, I'm fine if that happens, right? But if they had been there, and they could have, and you thought, oh, if they had just done this, they could have stopped it. But the only way they could have stopped it is just not left.
I don't think that's an issue, personally.
Well, that's your opinion, man. So I guess we gotta go to the tiebreaker. Dylan, let us know. What did you think?
Alright, well, I'm going to preface this with saying that I'm probably a bit biased in this decision because I always enjoy comedy as a genre over other genres as long as it can actually make me laugh. And that's one thing that SpongeBob definitely did, even after all these years, was it made me laugh. It was just all around enjoyable and fun. And I did enjoy the X-Files. I thought it was a very intriguing episode, and I liked Mulder a lot. I thought he was a cool character. but I still have to give it to SpongeBob for the quality jokes and goofs that he pulled. Really knocked it out of the park.
Okay, I can respect that, I suppose.
Well, Dylan, I think we're tighter than bark on a tree. I'm so
That was
glad you
dumb.
agreed
That
with
one
me.
was dumb. It's
Oh,
like, that doesn't make any sense, Dan. Shut up.
Hey, Dylan, your response is uglier than homemade soup.
I'll come.
I feel like she was very stereotypical, and it really fit her character.
I think that they were going for sort of a stereotype of what Texas could be. Not what Texas is, right? I think if you went to Texas, you'd find that it's very similar to just other parts of America.
Depending on how rural you go.
I don't know about that one. Have
I
you ever been
have,
to Texas,
actually.
Jackson? Okay.
And-
you probably didn't. I can't say anything.
And 2 of my roommates in college were from Texas. They were just really normal people.
I mean, were they from the city or were they from rural?
One was from city, one was rural.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching. The verdict for this one is SpongeBob is the better pilot episode.
It looks like your ship sunk, Michael.
Gonna go jump off a bridge now. All right. So you can tweet at us at ITZonecast on Twitter. You can email us at itzonecast@gmail.com. And our SoundCloud account is in our title zone along with our YouTube account. We will be uploading this both to SoundCloud and YouTube. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much, and we'll
Bye.
see you next time.
Good talk.
Good talk.
Good talk.
Good talk.
Good talk.